Hello and welcome to Audiobook Gist. Before we dive into today's incredible journey through one of history's most profound philosophical works, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more content like this. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now let's begin our exploration of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Today, we're exploring one of the most remarkable books ever written, not because it was intended for publication, but precisely because it wasn't. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is essentially the private journal of a Roman emperor, written nearly 2,000 years ago, yet its wisdom remains strikingly relevant to our modern lives. Marcus Aurelius lived from 121 to 180 AD and ruled as Roman emperor from 161 until his death. Despite holding the most powerful position in the ancient world, he chose to spend his private moments reflecting on how to live virtuously, how to maintain inner peace amid chaos, and how to remain humble despite absolute power. The title Meditations wasn't given by Marcus himself. The original Greek title translates more accurately to writings to himself. These were personal notes, reminders, and philosophical exercises that Marcus wrote during military campaigns and moments of solitude. He never intended for anyone else to read them, which makes their survival and influence all the more extraordinary. Let's begin by understanding the philosophical foundation of this work. Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic philosopher. Stoicism teaches that while we cannot control external events, we can control our responses to them. This ancient philosophy emphasizes virtue, reason, and living in harmony with nature. For Marcus, philosophy wasn't abstract theory, but a practical guide for daily living. In the opening sections, Marcus pays tribute to the people who shaped his character. He thanks his grandfather for teaching him good morals and controlling his temper. He credits his father with showing him modesty and manliness. His mother taught him religious devotion and generosity. From various teachers, he learned logic, ethics, and the importance of not taking sides in public disputes. This practice of gratitude sets the tone for the entire work. Marcus understood that we are products of our influences, and acknowledging those who helped shape us cultivates humility. Even as emperor, he recognized he didn't achieve his position or character alone. One of the central themes Marcus returns to repeatedly is the brevity of life. He reminds himself constantly that life is short, that death comes for everyone, and that this should focus our attention on what truly matters. He writes that we should live each day as if it were our last, not in a hedonistic sense, but by ensuring our actions align with our values. Marcus encourages us to meditate on death, not to become morbid, but to gain perspective. When we truly internalize our mortality, petty concerns fall away. The opinion of strangers, temporary setbacks, minor inconveniences, all these lose their power when measured against the finite nature of our existence. Another powerful concept Marcus explores is the idea that our thoughts shape our reality. He argues that life itself is nothing more than what we think about it. If we constantly dwell on negative thoughts, we create our own suffering. But if we choose to interpret events rationally and virtuously, we can maintain inner peace regardless of external circumstances. This isn't about positive thinking or denial. Marcus lived through plagues, wars, betrayals, and the loss of children. He knew suffering intimately. His approach was about cognitive reframing, about choosing the most rational and virtuous interpretation of events rather than the most emotionally reactive one. Marcus frequently reminds himself about the nature of other people. He notes that we will encounter difficult people every day, people who are ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, and envious. But he advises himself not to be surprised or angry about this. These people act from ignorance of what is good and evil. Moreover, Marcus recognizes that he himself has faults, and he cannot expect perfection from others when he isn't perfect himself. This attitude of compassionate understanding toward others is remarkable, coming from someone with the power to punish anyone who displeased him. Marcus chose instead to see difficult people as suffering from their own ignorance and worthy of patience rather than punishment. The concept of living in accordance with nature appears throughout the Meditations. For Marcus, this meant accepting the natural order of things. Everything that exists is part of a greater whole, and resisting this natural flow creates unnecessary suffering. Seasons change, people age and die. Circumstances shift beyond our control. Fighting against these natural processes is futile and exhausting. Living in accordance with nature also meant fulfilling one's role in the larger system. As emperor, Marcus had duties to perform. He didn't always enjoy them, but he recognized they were his responsibility. Similarly, each of us has roles and duties, and fulfilling them with excellence is part of living virtuously. Marcus emphasizes the importance of focusing on the present moment. He argues that we cannot change the past and cannot control the future. The only moment we truly possess is right now. By constantly worrying about tomorrow or ruminating about yesterday, we waste the only time we actually have. This ancient wisdom anticipates modern mindfulness practices. Marcus understood that psychological suffering often comes from mental time travel, from dwelling on what was or what might be, rather than engaging fully with what is. One of the most practical teachings in Meditations concerns how to start each day. Marcus advises preparing yourself mentally for the day ahead. Remind yourself that you will encounter difficult people and challenging situations. This mental preparation isn't pessimistic. It's realistic. By anticipating difficulties, we're less likely to be thrown off balance when they occur. He also emphasizes the importance of getting out of bed promptly when we wake. He notes the temptation to stay in warmth and comfort, but argues that we were made for action, for fulfilling our purpose. This simple advice about starting the day with purpose rather than procrastination has helped countless readers develop better habits. Marcus frequently reflects on the interconnectedness of all things. He sees the universe as a single living organism in which all parts affect each other. This perspective naturally leads to a sense of responsibility toward others. If we're all connected, harming another is ultimately harming ourselves. This interconnected view also helps with accepting life's changes. Just as cells in a body are constantly dying and being replaced, so too are we part of a larger process of transformation. What seems like loss from our individual perspective is simply change from a universal perspective. The concept of focusing on what is within our control is perhaps the most practical teaching of Stoicism. Marcus repeatedly distinguishes between what we can control and what we cannot. We can control our thoughts, our judgments, and our responses. We cannot control other people, external events, or outcomes. By focusing our energy exclusively on what we can control, we become more effective and less anxious. So much of our stress comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. Marcus teaches us to let go of that futile struggle and instead perfect our responses to whatever happens. Marcus also writes extensively about anger and how to manage it. He notes that anger never achieves anything good, and that it's always based on false judgments. When we become angry, we've made an error in thinking. We've judged something to be worth our peace of mind when it isn't. He suggests several techniques for managing anger. First, pause before reacting. Second, consider whether the person who angered you acted from ignorance rather than malice. Third, Examine your own faults before condemning others. Fourth, remember that anger hurts you more than whatever provoked it. The theme of impermanence runs throughout the meditations. Everything changes, nothing lasts. The mightiest empires crumble, the most famous people are forgotten. Our greatest concerns will one day seem trivial. Marcus finds this not depressing, but liberating. If nothing lasts, why attach ourselves so firmly to temporary things? Why not hold everything lightly? This perspective on impermanence helps with both success and failure. Success shouldn't inflate our ego because it won't last. Failure shouldn't devastate us for the same reason. Everything passes, so we might as well maintain equanimity through all of it. Marcus writes beautifully about the concept of obstacles. He famously notes that the impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way. This paradoxical wisdom suggests that obstacles aren't separate from our path, but actually are the path. Every difficulty is an opportunity to practice virtue, to develop strength, to refine our character. This doesn't mean we should seek out suffering, but when it inevitably arrives, we can choose to use it constructively. The obstacle becomes training material for developing resilience, patience, and wisdom. On the subject of opinion and reputation, Marcus frequently reminds himself not to care what others think. As emperor, he was constantly subjected to flattery and criticism. He recognized that both were unreliable guides to his true worth. Other people's opinions tell us more about them than about us. He advises focusing on our own conscience instead. Have we acted virtuously? Have we done our duty? Have we maintained our integrity? If yes, then external opinions become irrelevant. This inner-directed approach to life frees us from the exhausting need for approval. Marcus also explores the practice of negative visualization, imagining losing the things we value. This Stoic exercise isn't about being pessimistic, but about appreciating what we have while we have it. By contemplating loss, we become more grateful for presence. We also prepare ourselves emotionally for inevitable changes. This practice helps us hold our possessions, relationships, and even life itself more lightly. Everything is borrowed, nothing is permanent. By remembering this, we can enjoy things without clinging desperately to them. The concept of doing your duty without attachment to results appears frequently in the meditations. Marcus argues that we should focus on acting virtuously without worrying about outcomes. We should do what's right because it's right, not because we expect rewards or recognition. This is incredibly freeing. When we detach from results, we can act with full commitment without the anxiety of needing specific outcomes. We do our best and then accept whatever follows with equanimity. Marcus writes movingly about mortality and the importance of not wasting time. He notes that we could be good now, right in this moment, so why delay? Why put off virtue, kindness, or wisdom until tomorrow? Tomorrow might never come. The time to live well is now. This urgency isn't about stress or anxiety, but about recognizing the preciousness of each moment. We have limited time, so we should spend it wisely, living in alignment with our deepest values rather than drifting through our days. On dealing with pain and hardship, Marcus offers profound wisdom. He notes that pain is neither unbearable nor endless. If it's unbearable, it will end us. If it's endurable, we can bear it. This stark logic helps us maintain perspective during difficult times. We've survived everything life has thrown at us so far, which means we're stronger than we think. He also distinguishes between the pain itself and our judgment about the pain. The physical sensation is one thing. Our mental anguish about it is another. Often, the mental suffering exceeds the physical, and that mental component is within our control. Marcus frequently reminds himself about the futility of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain as life's primary goals. Pleasure is fleeting and often followed by its opposite, Pain is inevitable and temporary. Basing our happiness on these unstable foundations guarantees suffering. Instead, he advocates for virtue as the only reliable source of well-being. Virtue, acting rightly according to reason and nature, remains available in all circumstances. Whether healthy or sick, praised or criticized, rich or poor, we can always choose to act virtuously. This makes virtue the only truly secure foundation for peace of mind. The practice of seeing things as they truly are, stripped of our projections and judgments, is another key Stoic technique Marcus employs. He describes reducing things to their basic components. Fine wine is just fermented grape juice. A royal robe is just sheep's wool dyed with shellfish blood. This objective view prevents us from overvaluing things. This isn't about cynicism, but about clarity. By seeing things as they are rather than as we imagine them to be, we free ourselves from false values and empty pursuits. We can then direct our attention toward what genuinely matters. Marcus also reflects on the cosmic perspective, imagining himself from above, seeing the Earth as a tiny point in infinite space, human concerns as minuscule in the vast scope of time. This view doesn't diminish the importance of living well, but it puts our worries into perspective. Most of what troubles us is insignificant from this broader view. Yet Marcus balances this cosmic perspective with attention to the immediate and particular. He argues that we should focus on our specific duties and relationships while maintaining awareness of the larger whole. We're both individuals with particular roles and parts of the universal system. On the subject of change, Marcus notes that change is not only natural, but necessary. The universe is constant transformation. Yesterday's certainties become today's memories. Fighting change is fighting nature itself. Instead, we should embrace change as the fundamental characteristic of existence. This acceptance doesn't mean passivity. We still act, plan, and work toward goals, but we hold our plans lightly, ready to adapt when circumstances change. We recognize that flexibility is wisdom, not weakness. Marcus writes about the importance of examining our own thoughts and beliefs. Many of our opinions aren't truly our own, but absorbed uncritically from society. By questioning our assumptions, we can discover which beliefs serve us and which create unnecessary suffering. This philosophical self-examination was crucial to Marcus. He constantly questioned his own judgments, looking for errors in thinking that might disturb his peace. This practice of cognitive vigilance helps us catch destructive thought patterns before they take root. The concept of universal reason, or logos, appears throughout the Meditations. Marcus believed in a rational principle governing the universe. By aligning our own reason with this universal reason, we live in harmony with nature. This doesn't require believing in any particular deity, but rather trusting in the rational order of things. This trust helps us accept events we don't understand. If there's a rational order to the universe, then everything serves some purpose, even if we can't perceive it. This faith in cosmic rationality provides comfort during chaotic times. Marcus addresses the tendency toward pride and arrogance, especially dangerous for someone in his position. He reminds himself that he's just flesh and blood like everyone else, that he'll die and be forgotten like countless others. Fame is fleeting, power is temporary, and our self-importance is usually misplaced. This humility isn't self-deprecation, but accurate self-assessment. Marcus had enormous power and responsibility, but he recognized these as roles he played, not his essential identity. This perspective prevented him from becoming corrupted by power. On relationships, Marcus advocates for kindness and patience, even with difficult people. He notes that we're all members of the same body, meant to work together, rather than against each other. When others act badly, they harm themselves most of all. Our job is to correct them gently if possible, or accept them as they are if not. This approach to relationships is remarkably modern. Marcus understood that trying to control or change others is futile and frustrating. We can influence through our own example and offer help when asked, but ultimately, people are responsible for their own choices. Marcus frequently reflects on the shortness of time and the importance of living fully in each moment. He notes that we often act as if we have forever, postponing what's important for later. But later might never come. The wise person treats each day as both complete in itself and a precious gift. This awareness of mortality should focus rather than frighten us. It helps us prioritize what matters and let go of trivial concerns. When we truly grasp that our time is limited, we become more intentional about how we spend it. The practice of morning and evening reflection appears in the meditations as well. Marcus suggests beginning each day by preparing mentally for what we'll encounter and ending each day by reviewing our actions. Did we act according to our principles? Where did we succeed? Where did we fall short? This daily practice of reflection helps us gradually improve our character. This ancient practice mirrors modern approaches to habit formation and personal development. By regularly examining our behavior against our values, we create accountability and motivation for change. Marcus writes about the importance of focusing on the task at hand rather than being distracted by past or future concerns. Whatever we're doing deserves our full attention. This practice of presence not only improves our performance, but also enriches our experience of life. Whether performing imperial duties or spending time with family, Marcus tried to be fully engaged rather than mentally elsewhere. This quality of attention is itself a form of respect and love for life. On the topic of criticism and praise, Marcus maintains that neither should affect us unduly. Criticism is often based on the critic's own confusion about values. Praise is equally unreliable, often given by people whose opinions we wouldn't respect in other areas. Better to have our own clear standards and measure ourselves against those. This independence from external judgment is liberating. It allows us to act according to our conscience without constantly seeking approval or fearing disapproval. We become self-directed rather than other-directed. Marcus addresses the natural human tendency toward laziness and procrastination. He notes the voice that says just a little more rest, just a little longer in comfort. But he counters that we were made for action, for contributing, for fulfilling our purpose. Comfort might be pleasant, but it's not fulfilling. This tension between comfort and purpose is eternal. Marcus chose purpose, not because it's always pleasant, but because it's ultimately more satisfying. We're happier when we're engaged with meaningful work than when we're idle. The concept of amor fati, love of fate, runs through the meditations, though Marcus doesn't use this exact phrase. He advocates not merely accepting what happens, but embracing it as necessary and even good. Whatever occurs is part of the natural order, and therefore should be welcomed rather than resisted. This radical acceptance doesn't mean we become passive. We still work toward our goals and try to improve circumstances, but we accept the outcomes without complaint, recognizing that they too are part of the pattern of nature. Marcus reflects on the cycles of history, noting that the same types of people and situations recur across time. Nothing is truly new. This perspective helps prevent us from thinking our challenges are unique or unprecedented. Others have faced similar difficulties and found ways through. We can too. This historical consciousness provides both humility and hope. Our problems aren't special, which means they're solvable. Others have navigated similar waters successfully. On simplicity, Marcus advocates for taking the straightforward path rather than the complicated one. In thought, speech, and action, Simplicity tends toward truth, while complexity often obscures it. This doesn't mean being simplistic, but rather avoiding unnecessary elaboration that creates confusion. This principle applies to ethics especially. The right course of action is usually clear if we strip away rationalizations and self-deception. Simplicity in principles makes them easier to remember and follow. Marcus writes about the practice of viewing each action as potentially our last. If we knew this was our final act, would we do it this way? This thought experiment helps us maintain perspective and act with integrity. We're less likely to waste time on trivial matters, or act in ways we'd regret if this were our end. This memento mori practice isn't morbid, but clarifying. It helps us live more intentionally and authentically, knowing that each moment matters because our moments are numbered. The importance of community and social duty features prominently in Marcus's reflections. Though capable of Stoic detachment, he never advocates for withdrawal from society. We're social creatures with obligations to our communities. Fulfilling these duties is part of living according to nature. This social dimension of Stoicism is sometimes overlooked, but for Marcus, it was crucial. Individual virtue expresses itself through service to others and contribution to the common good. Marcus addresses the problem of attachment and how it creates suffering. When we become too attached to outcomes, possessions, or even people, we set ourselves up for pain. Everything is impermanent. So attachment to permanence guarantees disappointment. Better to love and appreciate while holding lightly, ready to let go when necessary. This isn't coldness, but wisdom. We can love deeply while recognizing that nothing is ours to keep forever. This paradox of engaged detachment allows for both connection and peace. On adversity, Marcus sees it as educational. Every difficulty teaches us something, if we're willing to learn. Bad situations test our principles and reveal our character. They're opportunities for growth, not just obstacles to overcome. This perspective transforms suffering from something merely to be endured into something potentially valuable. This doesn't make adversity pleasant, but it does make it meaningful. When we can extract lessons from difficulties, they become part of our development rather than mere misfortune. Marcus frequently reminds himself to look at things from multiple perspectives. What seems like a disaster from one angle might be insignificant from another. This cognitive flexibility prevents us from getting locked into narrow, distressing interpretations of events. By consciously practicing perspective-taking, we develop mental agility and resilience. We become less rigid in our thinking and more able to adapt to changing circumstances. The practice of philosophical study as a daily necessity appears throughout the work. Marcus didn't read philosophy occasionally, but returned to it daily, using it as medicine for his soul. He recognized that philosophical principles need constant reinforcement to counteract our natural biases and emotional reactions. This commitment to daily practice, rather than occasional engagement, distinguishes philosophy as a way of life from philosophy as academic study. For Marcus, philosophy was practical wisdom applied moment by moment. Marcus writes about the danger of being too concerned with the future. Planning is wise, but excessive worry about tomorrow robs us of today. The future will bring what it brings, regardless of our anxiety. Better to prepare reasonably, then focus on living well in the present. This balance between prudent preparation and present moment awareness is delicate, but crucial. We can plan without obsessing, prepare without panicking. On revenge and resentment, Marcus is clear. Harming those who harm us doesn't restore what was taken or improve our situation. It merely adds more wrong to the world. Better to focus on our own virtue and let go of the desire for revenge. Justice may require consequences, but personal vendetta serves no good purpose. This restraint from retaliation is particularly remarkable from someone with the power to destroy his enemies. Marcus chose the harder path of forgiveness and focus on his own behavior rather than punishing others. Marcus reflects on the unity of the present moment with past and future. All time is one continuous flow, and the present contains everything that was and will be. This philosophical view of time helps reduce anxiety about both past regrets and future worries. Everything exists in an eternal now. This concept is challenging, but potentially liberating. If we can experience time as unified rather than fragmented, we might find greater peace with our place in it. The importance of maintaining our own character, regardless of circumstances, is a constant theme. Whether we're healthy or sick, praised or blamed, successful or failing, our core task remains the same: to act virtuously. External circumstances don't determine our capacity for virtue. This inner stability is what Marcus sought through his philosophical practice. By anchoring himself in virtue rather than fortune, he could remain steady through all the chaos of imperial rule. Marcus addresses the seductive nature of pleasure and comfort. He notes that they promise happiness, but rarely deliver lasting satisfaction. The pursuit of pleasure often leads to excess and suffering. Better to find contentment in simple things and focus on virtue rather than chasing fleeting pleasures. This isn't Puritanism, but pragmatism. Marcus had access to every luxury imaginable, but recognized that happiness doesn't come from external pleasures. It comes from inner alignment with virtue. On dealing with insults and criticism, Marcus advises examining whether the criticism is valid. If it is, we should be grateful for the information and correct ourselves. If it isn't, we should dismiss it as coming from someone who doesn't understand virtue. Either way, there's no reason to be upset. This rational approach to criticism removes much of its sting. We either learn something useful or we recognize the criticism as invalid. In neither case is anger appropriate. Marcus writes about the interconnection between thought and action. Our thoughts shape our character, and our character determines our actions. Therefore, we must be vigilant about our thoughts, cultivating those that support virtue and dismissing those that don't. This cognitive focus is foundational to Stoic practice. By controlling our thoughts, we ultimately control our lives, at least the aspects within our power. The concept of living as if you were dying appears repeatedly. Marcus urges himself not to postpone living well until some future date. The time to be virtuous is now. We might not have tomorrow, so we should live today as if it's all we have. This urgency creates intensity and intentionality. Life becomes precious when we truly grasp its brevity. We stop wasting time on what doesn't matter. Marcus reflects on how often our suffering is self-created through false judgments and unnecessary opinions. The external event is neutral. It's our interpretation that makes it seem good or bad. By changing our judgments, we can eliminate much of our suffering. This isn't denial, but cognitive reframing. We choose interpretations that align with reason and virtue, rather than those that generate unnecessary distress. On legacy and remembrance, Marcus is realistic. He notes that even the most famous people are eventually forgotten. A few generations after our death, no one will remember us. This might seem depressing, but Marcus finds it liberating. If we won't be remembered anyway, why seek fame? Better to focus on living well right now. This dismissal of posthumous fame frees us from the need for recognition. We can act rightly simply because it's right, not because we hope to be remembered for it. Marcus addresses the challenge of maintaining philosophy during difficult times. It's easy to be philosophical when life is going well, but true practice is tested during adversity. He reminds himself that philosophy isn't meant just for calm moments, but especially for chaos and challenge. This practical emphasis on philosophy as a tool for difficult times makes it relevant and useful. It's not abstract theory, but applied wisdom for navigating life's storms. The practice of gratitude permeates the meditations. Marcus regularly reminds himself to be grateful for what he has, the people in his life, for his capacity to reason and act virtuously. This gratitude isn't naive positivity, but conscious appreciation for genuine goods. Gratitude is both a perspective and a practice. By regularly noting what we're thankful for, we train our minds toward appreciation rather than complaint. Marcus writes about the importance of acting with full commitment to whatever we're doing. Whether ruling an empire or performing a simple task, we should give it our complete attention and effort. This intensity of focus is itself a form of excellence. This quality of attention elevates even mundane activities. When we're fully present, everything becomes meaningful. On facing death, Marcus is remarkably serene. He sees it as a natural process, neither good nor bad, simply inevitable. Fighting against it, or fearing it, makes no sense. Better to accept it as part of nature's order and focus on living well until it comes. This acceptance of mortality, paradoxically, makes life more vivid. When we stop denying death, we can fully embrace life. Marcus frequently returns to the idea that we're all going to the same place. Emperor and slave, rich and poor, all end in death and dissolution. This levels the playing field and removes any basis for arrogance. We're all temporary residents of these bodies, heading toward the same destination. This democratic vision of mortality promotes humility and compassion. If we're all in the same boat, ultimately, we might as well treat each other kindly during the journey. The concept of doing good without expectation of return appears often. Marcus argues that doing good is its own reward. Like a vine producing grapes, we should act virtuously because it's our nature, not because we expect thanks or recognition. This disinterested goodness is rare but powerful. When we help others without keeping score, we free ourselves from resentment and disappointment. Marcus addresses the problem of regret and how to handle mistakes. He advises acknowledging errors, learning from them, and moving forward. Dwelling on past mistakes doesn't change them, but does poison the present. Better to extract the lesson and apply it going forward. This forward-looking approach to mistakes is compassionate and practical. We learn best when we can face our errors honestly, without drowning in guilt. On simplicity of life, Marcus advocates for reducing our needs rather than constantly seeking to fulfill expanding desires. The person who needs little is rich, regardless of their bank account. The person who needs much is poor, even if wealthy. Happiness comes from wanting less, not having more. This ancient wisdom challenges our consumer culture, but rings true. Many wealthy people are chronically dissatisfied, while some, with very little, are content. Marcus writes about the practice of imagining the day ahead and mentally rehearsing how to handle challenges. This mental preparation helps us respond virtuously rather than reactively when difficulties arise. We've already practiced our response in imagination. This visualization technique remains valid today. Athletes and performers use it regularly. Marcus applied it to the art of living well. The importance of maintaining inner freedom regardless of external circumstances is crucial to Marcus. Even as emperor, he recognized that his power was limited and temporary. True freedom comes from mastering ourselves, our reactions, our desires. This inner freedom is available to everyone, regardless of status. This democratic accessibility of philosophy makes it powerful. We don't need wealth or status to practice virtue and achieve inner peace. Marcus reflects on how quickly time passes and how little we accomplish relative to our plans. This should humble us and focus our attention on what truly matters. We don't have time for everything, so we must choose wisely how we spend our limited hours. This time consciousness creates healthy urgency without panic. We move with purpose because we recognize opportunity costs. On dealing with difficult people, Marcus advocates for patience and understanding. These people act from ignorance, not malice. They don't understand what's truly good. Rather than hating them, we should pity them and try to show them better through our example. This compassionate approach to difficult people reduces our own suffering. Hatred hurts us more than its target. Compassion, even for difficult people, preserves our peace. Marcus addresses the futility of complaining. Complaints don't change circumstances, but do worsen our state of mind. Better to accept what we cannot change and focus energy on what we can influence. Acceptance doesn't mean approval, but rather acknowledging reality as it is. This radical acceptance is challenging, but liberating. So much energy is wasted in resistance to unchangeable facts. That energy could be better used elsewhere. The practice of reducing things to their essentials appears throughout the work. Strip away the labels, the social meanings, the projected values. What remains is the thing itself, often far less impressive than we imagined. This practice prevents us from overvaluing external goods. This philosophical technique of definition helps us see clearly. When we remove our projections, we see reality as it is, rather than as we imagine it. Marcus writes about the importance of community and our obligation to contribute to the common good. We're parts of a larger whole, and our individual flourishing is connected to collective well-being. Service to others is therefore service to ourselves. This social philosophy prevents the Stoic focus on personal virtue from becoming selfish. We develop virtue partly through serving others and contributing to community. On handling success, Marcus warns against pride and overconfidence. Success is partly luck, partly effort, and always temporary. We should enjoy it without attachment, grateful for the opportunity, but not identifying with the outcome. This detached engagement with success prevents both arrogance when things go well and devastation when they don't. We do our best and accept results with equanimity. Marcus reflects on the cycles of nature and how everything transforms into something else. Death isn't an ending, but a transformation. The elements that make up our bodies will become something else. This view of death as change, rather than annihilation, makes it less frightening. This naturalistic view of death doesn't require any religious belief, but does offer comfort. We're part of nature's endless recycling, not outside it. The importance of acting from principle rather than impulse features prominently. Marcus advocates pausing before responding, consulting our principles, and then acting deliberately. This space between stimulus and response is where freedom lives. This self-control isn't repression but conscious choice. We act from our highest values, rather than our basest impulses. Marcus addresses the seductiveness of distraction and entertainment. He notes how we're drawn to empty amusements that waste our time without enriching our lives. Better to engage with what's meaningful, even if more challenging. This warning about distraction feels remarkably modern. Though Marcus didn't face social media, the human tendency toward trivial amusement is timeless. On maintaining relationships, Marcus advocates for kindness and patience. People are imperfect, including ourselves. We should treat others as we'd wish to be treated, with compassion for their flaws and appreciation for their efforts. This reciprocal approach to relationships creates harmony. When we extend to others the patience we hope to receive, everyone benefits. Marcus writes about the importance of finishing what we start. Completing tasks fully rather than leaving them partially done builds character and creates satisfaction. This follow-through distinguishes those who accomplish much from those who start many things but finish few. This emphasis on completion over mere beginning is practical wisdom. The world rewards those who finish, not those who only start enthusiastically. The concept of universal change as the fundamental nature of reality appears repeatedly. Everything is in flux, nothing is static. Resisting this truth creates suffering, while accepting it brings peace. Change isn't an anomaly, but the very essence of existence. This philosophical insight has practical implications. When we stop expecting permanence, we experience less disappointment. We can enjoy things while they last without clinging desperately when they change. Marcus reflects on how our judgments create our experience. Two people can face identical circumstances, yet have completely different experiences based on their judgments about those circumstances. This puts tremendous power in our hands, the power to shape our experience through conscious judgment. This cognitive control is both empowering and demanding. We're responsible for our reactions, which means we can't blame circumstances for our suffering. But it also means we can free ourselves from suffering by changing our judgments. On the pursuit of pleasure, Marcus notes that it's often disappointing. The anticipation is better than the reality, and pleasure quickly fades, leaving us seeking more. This hedonistic treadmill leads nowhere satisfying. Better to seek virtue, which provides stable fulfillment. This critique of pleasure-seeking doesn't mean avoiding all pleasure, but rather not making it our primary goal. Pleasure can be enjoyed without being pursued desperately. Marcus addresses the importance of honest self-examination. We must look at ourselves clearly, acknowledging our faults without excuse, but also our capacities without false modesty. This honest assessment allows for genuine growth. This balanced self-view prevents both arrogance and self-hatred. We see ourselves as we are, works in progress with both strengths and weaknesses. The practice of remembering death and impermanence helps us prioritize. When we truly grasp that our time is limited, we become more selective about how we spend it. We say no to more things so we can say yes to what matters most. This memento mori practice creates focus. We can't do everything, so we must choose. Remembering our mortality helps us choose wisely. Marcus writes about maintaining equanimity in success and failure. Neither should disturb our inner peace. Success is temporary and partly beyond our control. Failure, likewise. What matters is whether we acted virtuously, and that's entirely within our control. This steadiness, through fortune's ups and downs, is the mark of philosophical maturity. We're neither elated by success nor crushed by failure, because neither defines us. On responding to harm, Marcus advocates for the high road. When others harm us, they harm themselves more by corrupting their character. We can choose not to be harmed by maintaining our virtue. Their action doesn't require our reaction. This perspective doesn't mean allowing abuse, but rather not allowing others' bad behavior to corrupt our character. We maintain our standards, regardless of others' actions. Marcus reflects on the shortness of our lives and how much of it we waste. We act as if we'll live forever, postponing what matters for later. But later might never come. We should live now, as if we understand the preciousness of time. This urgency about time, well spent, motivates action. We stop procrastinating when we truly grasp that time is our most limited resource. The importance of directing our attention wisely appears throughout the meditations. What we focus on grows in our experience. If we dwell on grievances, we'll be miserable. If we focus on what's good and within our control, we'll be content. Attention is a choice, and choosing wisely is a key to well-being. This attentional control is a skill that can be developed. Like any skill, it requires practice, but the rewards are profound. By directing our attention to what's constructive and meaningful, we shape the quality of our experience. Marcus addresses the problem of comparing ourselves to others. Such comparisons are futile because we're all running different races with different starting points. Better to compare ourselves to our own potential, asking whether we're living up to our capacity for virtue. This inward focus prevents both envy of those who seem better off and contempt for those who seem worse off. We focus on our own progress along our own path. On dealing with anxiety about the future, Marcus reminds himself that most of what we worry about never happens, and even when it does, we usually handle it better than we feared. Anxiety is borrowing trouble from tomorrow, paying interest on debts we may never owe. This recognition of anxiety's futility doesn't eliminate it, but it does give us perspective. We can notice anxious thoughts without believing them or acting on them. Marcus writes about the value of solitude and quiet reflection. While we have social duties, we also need time alone to think, to realign with our principles, to restore our inner peace. This balance between engagement and withdrawal is necessary for sustained well-being. This ancient wisdom recognizes what modern psychology confirms. We need both connection and solitude. Too much of either creates problems. The concept of living according to reason rather than passion features prominently. Marcus doesn't advocate eliminating emotions, but rather not being ruled by them. We feel emotions but respond with reason, choosing actions based on principle rather than impulse. This rational approach to life doesn't make us cold or calculating, but rather thoughtful and deliberate. We act from our best selves rather than our most reactive selves. Marcus reflects on how everything serves a purpose in the grand scheme, even things that seem harmful or wrong. This doesn't justify wrongdoing, but suggests that everything, including difficulties, contributes to the whole in ways we may not understand. This faith in cosmic order provides comfort during chaos. Even when we can't see the purpose, we can trust that there is one. On the pursuit of knowledge, Marcus values learning, but warns against our mere intellectual curiosity, divorced from practical application. Philosophy should make us better people, not just more knowledgeable ones. The goal isn't to accumulate facts, but to transform our character and live more wisely. Marcus ultimately teaches us that the good life isn't about external circumstances, but about internal character. We can't control what happens to us, but we can control who we are in response to what happens. This is our true power and our true freedom. The wisdom in Meditations remains revolutionary because it places responsibility and power exactly where they belong, within ourselves. We don't need perfect circumstances to live well. We don't need wealth, fame, or power. We simply need to cultivate virtue, practice reason, and live in harmony with nature. Marcus Aurelius wrote these reflections nearly 2,000 years ago, yet they speak directly to our modern struggles. We still face difficult people, challenging circumstances, uncertainty about the future, the fundamental questions of how to live meaningfully in a world we don't fully control. His answers, born from experience at the highest levels of power, remain as relevant and practical today as they were in ancient Rome. The beauty of this philosophy is its accessibility. You don't need special training, expensive courses, or rare abilities. You simply need to think clearly, act virtuously, and accept what you cannot change. This is within everyone's reach, regardless of circumstances. As we close this exploration of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, I want to... Life is short, uncertain, and filled with challenges, but it is also filled with opportunities to practice wisdom, show kindness, and become the person you're capable of being. Don't wait for perfect circumstances to begin living well. Start now. Start today. Start in this very moment. Remember Marcus's words. You could be good now. So why not be? Thank you so much for spending this time with us on Audiobook Gist. If you found value in this exploration of Marcus Aurelius's meditations, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. Share this video with someone who might need to hear these timeless truths. Your support helps us continue bringing you more content like this. Until next time, may you live with wisdom, act with virtue, and find peace within yourself. Take care, and remember, the obstacle is the way.